As Edgar was returning to Sceptic Tower after reopening a betting shop in East London which had been firebombed the night before, a limpet mine blew his armoured car into the air. 16 people were seriously hurt, around 20 bystanders were seriously injured, 3 buildings were reduced to rubble, and something like 20 cars were set on fire. Edgar walked away from the scene with minor head injuries. He was kept in St. Anthony's Hospital overnight for observation. The next day, in full view of thousands of followers filling St. Peter's Square, Pope Ingram ripped up every single metaphysical betting receipt he had ever received. He also smashed the peanut in the Perspex block that Edgar Malroy had presented him about a month before on Who Knows TV. Everyone in St. Peter's Square crossed themselves. After Pope Ingram had ripped up his metaphysical receipts, he fed them to 32 hamsters in 32 white cages that took up most of the balcony. Pope Ingram urged all God-fearing Catholics to do the same. Following the sacking of 8,000 priests and members of the Roman Curia of the Vatican, an official announced that until further notice all beatifications and canonizations were to be suspended due to a shortage of manpower. A little later that same day, Pope Ingram appealed to his followers to give charitably to the Church. "We cannot run on Hail Marys alone," he said. Radio Vaticana, which broadcast to some 200 countries in 35 languages for 16 hours a day, went off the air. The Patriarch of Constantinople said he never wanted to see another pretty girl in a white swimsuit for as long as he lived. Popedoms became very expensive. The religious crisis deepened. Some 15% of all known religions had disappeared due to the activities of Scepticism Inc. As much as the priests shouted at them, shook them, slapped them, and preached against betting from their pulpits, nuts went on betting and betting. It was too late. They simply loved it. Perhaps if the religious leaders had tried to ban betting earlier, they might have met with more success, but as it was, betting on one's metaphysical convictions had become something of a habit, a planet-wide pastime that proved impossible to stop until the very end. As things got worse and worse, vast numbers of livid, bedraggled, suddenly unemployed priests flocked to Sceptic Tower in protest at their fate. Most were speechless with rage, furious that Scepticism Inc. had reduced them to little more than beggars. Every day at lunchtime, Scepticism Inc. staff would hand out bowls of soup and hunks of bread to the former priests, who were so livid they could hardly swallow. As the death toll of religions grew, more and more holy men joined the bedraggled, fuming crowd that stood under the shadow of the giant question mark. The new arrivals looked like they had been shipwrecked in some terrible storm. The next month, another 61 religious denominations were wiped from the face of the earth. 5 Native American religions died out, all on the same day, and the occult following of Ouspensky ran out of money, as did the Muggletonians. The popes were said to be incredibly hard up, and the Panchen Lama was using reusable nappies. Edgar lectured us on why religion was so funny. Sorry. Part 2, Chapter 31. Edgar lectured us on why religion was so funny. "It isn't just because religion takes itself so seriously," he said. "Religion, by its very nature, is absurd. It can't help it. Religion is the greatest joke of them all. It's the funniest thing there is. It is the longest running joke in the history of the world. Mankind has been telling itself the joke for millennia. The trouble was, Edgar said, that man has been telling the joke for so long he's forgotten to laugh. Edgar said part of the reason for metaphysical betting shops was to make us laugh more at the crazy things religion said were so. He told us to consider, for example, the Trinity, one but three at the same time. When Edgar Malroy first heard about the Trinity, he nearly died laughing. Reincarnation cracked him up as well. All of it did. The idea of a soul, of God. But the funniest thing of all, the thing that really took the biscuit, was blind faith itself. I doubt wherever you end up, you'll ever come across anything half as funny or as scary, or as stupid, or as sad as blind faith, Edgar said, grinning. He then wrote the following words on the blackboard. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. He didn't manage to finish the quote because he was laughing so much his false eye popped out of its socket, bounced off the blackboard, and down the throat of a former Catholic in the third row. An ambulance was called when the poor girl passed out. The Lefters, a religious movement that had broken away from orthodox Wimboism during Edgar's time at Tewkesbury University, stopped peddling its curious brand of nuttiness due to financial pressure brought about by metaphysical betting. Edgar was visibly relieved. Since I had met him, he had rarely talked about the religion he had inadvertently founded in his college days. He was embarrassed about the whole thing. He was utterly ecstatic when he was informed a week later, recovering in hospital, that orthodox Wimboism was also no more. Edgar was recovering in hospital at the time from another attempt on his life. What had happened was this. Someone had placed near the central ventilation system of Skeptic Tower 4 canisters of nerve gas. Edgar, 150 of his employees, and 300 nutty customers were taken to hospital. Tire marks were found near the scene of the crime, which matched perfectly the single tire of Sophia Alderson's wheelbarrow. The police arrested Dr. Cunningham as he left the men's outfitters. Part 2, Chapter 32. Dr. Cunningham confessed to everything. Between Dr. Cunningham's arrest and trial, a further 28 religions had died off. He told his lawyer that he had done what he had done because he was, in his professional opinion, out of his mind. He was, he said, hopelessly in love. Love was his alibi. At his trial, the public gallery was festooned with illegible placards. When the jury found Dr. Cunningham guilty, the judge said that Dr. Cunningham was a total disgrace to psychiatry and a danger to the public. He sentenced him to 50 years in prison. When Sophia Alderson heard of the verdict, she declared it contrary to the law of God. She then promptly declared Dr. Cunningham a saint. Outside Rainthorpe House, reporters wanted to know if it was Dr. Saint Cunningham or Saint Dr. Cunningham. Who knows?